Started. We will be going live momentarily. Let me get the Facebook going. Let me get the Telegram going as well, and then we'll start the 5-minute countdown and begin after that. After that. After that. All right, folks, welcome. We are live on Rumble, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, and now Telegram. This is episode 14 of News for Us World's Fringe Division podcast. We're doing part 2 of the Burisch and Project Looking Glass information, which is very, very interesting to say the least. I think it's quite fascinating. I've been fascinated by the subject for many, many years, and so this is a good coverage. I mean, this is one of the subjects I've been looking into for many years, and it's not the whole subject, but it's a component of the whole picture, and it definitely has valuable information when you plug it into the rest of everything that's going on, I think. So let me start the countdown timer. Let's share it out, and then we'll begin, folks. Welcome, folks, to episode 14 of News for Us World's Fringe Division podcast. This will be part 2 of the Dan Burisch and Project Looking Glass information, which is quite fascinating, in my view, something I've looked into a long time ago. So, yeah, very fascinating. Definitely going to be interesting to see the rest of this interview with Carrie Cassidy, her interview of Dan Burisch. And so let me bring that up. I'm gonna skip the regular intro sequence for right now. I just want to get right to it, folks. So let's just do that. We can play it on the intro sequence on the outro when we finish up the show, folks. Alrighty. Let me share my screen. Just minimize OBS. Don't need that open. Well, not maximized anyway. Here we go. And then we'll go over and talk about it and cover some of the articles that I had brought up in the last episode.
Ring-like devices where men with military equipment walk through and meet Raw on the other side and bring their nuclear weapons with them. No. They were used for passing information and passing inhabitants this direction.
Oh, by other cultures coming this way, but not by us.
By P+45s and P+52s, both Orions and J-Rods. The treaties were basically inflicted on us by the Orions. As they were enforced upon us by the Orions that we needed to do what we needed to do, when they figured out that we weren't able to handle the issue ourselves, they looked at their own history and said, look at the cavemen and women. Then I found out that because he had carried the attitude that the Magi were not closely watching anything which was like NEOs or any, the near-Earth orbiting asteroids or anything like that. They weren't concerned about it at all. Well, then subsequently during a conversation, I found out that in fact they were. The information from her relative was in fact that they were aware that there would be an Islamic attack upon the United States as early, meaning they were aware as early as the mid-1990s that it would be coming sometime in the new millennium. Well, right on, smack on the beam. The Orions could trust us so much where they could hand us a cube, and we misused it to the state that we misused it, where they then had to inflict a treaty system upon us.
But the moon's not like, the most inhabitable planet.
No, but it's the place that we're allowed to be right now. Okay. Do I sound like I'm weighing my words? That our emotions affect our state, our physical state. That our orientation to the energies which are available from the cosmos, if you will, affect the state of our DNA, affect the state of our health, and they are applying that as an experimental protocol, a rubric, if you will, to change the state of the people on board so that they can sample them for biological material.
I have a question about the probabilities, Dan. The low probability...
When you ask a question, I'm really serious.
The low probability, according to what I understand, what you said earlier, is 19%. Is that still valid? Because that's still playing Russian roulette with one bullet in a barrel of 5.
Is it not? Actually it's slightly worse than that. Okay. In all honesty, it's slightly worse than that because there's only an 85% confidence level to that 19%.
So that doesn't quite sound like we can all relax.
I don't think it's I don't think it's a question. I think we need to do the right things, and there was a correlation to the successful and unsuccessful outcomes, which involved the people of the world being united in purpose for survival and for care for our world. And that's the reason why we did this crazy thing. And I you know, it sounded crazy, it looked crazy, but we did it because it was the right thing to do. And I ended up having to send a team of people out, canvassing the regular people of the world and handing flyers out stating that the time had arrived for us to pray for unity. And I would still encourage that seriously and sincerely. You know, I lost people. I was in charge of a team, and some of them died as a result, well, a couple of them from accidents, and that, you know, can happen anywhere. But a couple of them were put to death for proselytizing. And so I bear that on my soul now.
For put to death for proselytizing
In a country where
meaning China.
There was in fact 2 deaths in China, and we also lost some people in Saudi Arabia and a couple other places. I didn't make public how many all we lost or how many all we had, but they did their jobs, and the information was handed out, and we did the best we could. Anyway, you were asking
Okay.
about the Stargate, the possible locations and all of that. On June 16th of 2003, in RV number 0403, Deborah was requested to do a remote viewing session, a sole one, a series of them, in fact, that she conducted, and she found several locations. Among them was, in fact, Voloshanka. Then she even said to the north by the tundra in Russia, and in the southwest Tibetan mountains. I'm sorry, I'm still a little bit thinking about my men and women. I don't know how to pronounce this. Mosjoen, Mosjoen in Norway. And that was a big hullabaloo. There was one actually, the equipment was actually removed from there.
So what you're
Syria,
saying,
Turkey.
You're saying she remote viewed the locations of the Stargate.
In fact, she did. And the reason why I reacted to pull this out, in your question, number 9, it says how many LGs were there? How many man-made Stargates? Where are they? And you gave a list of possible countries. In that list, you mentioned Bulgaria.
Right.
Well, on the second page of it, she's got the Pirin Mountains in Bulgaria listed. So I just wanted to kind of let you know.
Thank you.
And a couple points in Egypt, and she didn't, in fact, in this one, mention Iraq, because she was working separately for Iraq. On February the 4th of 2003, she did a special RV. Says, I came up with the following in my session. I saw a place 10 miles southeast of Baghdad. This, by the way, is a place where we ended up actually raiding and removing what they thought were rings for what they called weapons of mass destruction. Well, there were rings, all right, but it was a different kind of weapon of mass destruction. I pictured a big tree on the ground surface of this location. Now think about how Saddam was finally found.
Yes.
Behind the tree, there was a hole in the ground that had a piece of wood over it. I saw a man looking and feeling like Saddam have a guard lift the wood over the hole. Saddam then entered the hole and jumped into what looked like a platform at the top of a set of stairs. In remote viewing, I don't remote view, but in remote viewing, from everything I understand from her, time gets mixed up, overlaid, and sometimes
Yes.
off-shifted.
Yes.
And she clearly saw him in the spider hole.
Mm-hmm.
She also indicated that she found the work area down there, and in fact drew the work area, which they ended up finding the one gate in Iraq. Interesting
Okay.
stuff, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are kind of getting off the topic a little bit.
That's good.
Of Stargates and all that. We
Am I
know
causing that?
I'm sorry?
Said, am I causing that? I hope not.
We know that Kaela escaped through a Stargate with your assistance. That was described in one of our last videos.
Yeah.
And
E.T. went home.
Yes, E.T. went home.
Yep.
And the interesting thing about that is that you also had an experience in which you sort of fell into the Stargate and then kind of didn't go all the way, so you stayed in this reality.
Well, kind of.
Kind of.
I was expelled several yards away onto a slab of, it was either limestone or granite, I'm not really sure, or sandstone. All I know is that it was hard when I landed on it. And it was on the other side of the tarpaulin over, the area was separated, human ET side, for the actual staging around the Stargate. It was the military operation. And I ended up on the other side of the barriers, which were like raised curtains, so that the people around the area who were actual inhabitants of the area couldn't see. And I landed on that, and I moaned or groaned or was wondering where I was, and was in fact then approached by men in guns who were very upset with me. But
okay, but you saw the inside of a wormhole, right? Momentarily?
oh, I can't really say that. There was a gray curtain, almost a misty type curtain, very similar to what I remember during the time that I was in a coma back in the 70s. And I saw certain things on the other side, but it was a flash, and that was about it, and nothing really remarkable to talk about.
Okay, so you never went through, all the way through. I mean, I'm asking, did
No,
you,
I was
have you?
No,
I
I did
had
not
that
end up, I do
experience.
not remember ending up anywhere else.
Have you ever gone through a
No,
Stargate
no,
in
no, no,
capacity?
no, and no, there are no rotating ring-like devices where men with military equipment walk through and meet Raw on the other side and bring their nuclear weapons with them. No. There are, yes, I'm being derogatory towards Serpo.
Well, I thought that you were talking about Stargate.
Well, that's what Serpo came from. I mean, this list of, well, we've got our nuclear weapon with us and all of this business, and they could have picked something better than the name Serpo if they were going to go with it, but Serpo it's a reptile park in, what is it, Argentina or the Netherlands? It's the name of a reptile park.
Uh-huh.
And I think it was picked more by the former ops who were actually putting the disinfo together, and what they did is they just simply took a name and they turned it backwards. It was Opress.
Okay,
it's
but there was no
K4
Stargate
code.
in Serpo, in the Serpo story, as told to people.
Okay.
Okay, but
There's no Stargate in the Serpo.
that's what I said.
Yeah, sorry.
So what I'm asking is, we have Stargates, okay, that have been decommissioned,
Yeah.
okay, which access time travel technology.
Yeah.
Okay. These Stargates, before they were decommissioned, we must assume were used.
They were used for passing information and passing inhabitants this direction.
Oh, by other cultures coming this way, but not by us going elsewhere?
By P+45s and P+52s, both Orions and J-Rods.
What about all the other, I mean, I don't know if you're party to this, but how many other races are out there?
I am aware of one interdimensional species that won't speak with us directly and was communicating via the Orions, the P+52 Orions. That's it.
Okay, so
and I've been 20 years. It's confusing to me because I've got so many people with such great certitude. And I've been 20 years around these people, and either they were the greatest hiders in the world, even while drunk, and some of them drunk and recreationally drunk, and that's the way I should put that. Comes with large amounts of money. Sometimes they pay for products to make them feel good or whatever. I have never, it's been a joke. I hate to put it this way, but a lot of the UFO community, like to them, the stories have been a joke, and a lot of them have been proffered by the folkloristics unit in Majestic. They actually promulgated a lot of these stories, and now they hand me the bag to come out here and go, boo, you know, sorry, the boogeyman ain't real, I guess.
Okay.
The only thing that I'm aware of are the P+45s and the P+52s. The intergrades between them over the 7,000 years between them cannot be contacted per treaty. The P+52 J-rods and Orions I'm aware of, and the P+45 J-rods. At the time the P+45s were around, they were unaware that the P+52 Orions, which would then be P+45 Orions, even existed. They didn't even know that they still survived at the time. And they only found out as a consequence of coming here in the treaty negotiations.
Okay, but what about you're telling me the Stargates were only used one way by...
Used two ways, but one way by transport for delegates in.
Okay.
And that was only under extreme circumstances involving international uproar, where there were problems with the treaties. Aside from that, products were exchanged back and forth and information was exchanged. But it was deemed too dangerous to be handing people back and forth regularly. These things collapse, from what I understand, spontaneously. And if it collapses and you are not out one side or in the other, you're nowhere.
Okay, so you're telling me that these people had such a conscience, they were not sacrificing Americans or other, you know, or military people to test the Stargates?
No, the treaties were basically inflicted on us by the Orions. As they were enforced upon us by the Orions that we needed to do what we needed to do, when they figured out that we weren't able to handle the issue ourselves, they looked at their own history and said, huh, look at the cavemen and women. Okay? After we acted the way that we acted involving the cube and all of that business. They inflicted the treaty system on us. And they said, you will behave this way. We don't have the ability to just take a Stargate and to step through onto the other side without violating a treaty. They don't want us out there. We are dangerous. Okay. To ourselves. Okay. So why would we not be dangerous to another culture? They are sure as hell not going to let us off this planet.
Can I ask you...
Just ask about Montauk and about Henry's experience.
Well, yes, but...
I still, believe it or not, I still have not read about what Montauk is. And sitting here right now, I have zero clue what it even is.
Okay, that's cool. What about the Philadelphia experiment? You're familiar with that?
I'm familiar with the reports of the USS Eldridge.
Okay.
I'm familiar with the unified field theory testing that went on. In fact, the unified field theory testing did go on, but it made something which was, from what I understand, radar invisible, but not involving everything that I've heard all of these other movies about people going back to 1941 and prior to Pearl Harbor and all of this business, and, you know, walk through the time tunnel and all of this. The information that I've heard from the military sources, because I asked when I was in there, because I knew about the Philadelphia experiment from way back from hearing about it, that it was a legit experiment, that there was a legit experiment that went on, but it provided radar and visibility, and it was an early cloaking system, and it was electromagnetic cloaking.
Okay. Now I'm wondering what. Certainly, Kyella gave you sort of like hidden cards in your hand that allowed you to get information from Majestic, or to trade information with Majestic, such that you would learn what was going on in terms of the Stargates and various things.
And if I tell you, that means I'm telling that camera right there.
Yes. Mm-hmm. But if
and that one.
Recently, I don't know if this is in the public domain, but recently you found out that MJ1 had not told you everything about a certain incident.
True.
Okay, which was a incoming meteor.
It was Apophis, and the big thing is the affidavit that I wrote and the dust-up that happened between he and myself was based on the fact that he said, and I told him not to lie to me again, and the reason why I told him not to lie to me again, it involved the time period where I was told to keep my mouth totally shut, because of timelines. Then I found out that it was a bunch of garbage, basically just to manipulate me to keep my mouth shut. And after that happened, then more votes were taken, and then I was told to talk. I was given the orders to talk. Yo-yo, okay? When that happened, I told him, don't lie to me anymore. Tell me it's none of your damn business if you have to. I can accept that better than being lied to. You know, it's more honorable.
Sure.
He said fine. Then I found out that because he had carried the attitude that the Magi were not closely watching anything which was like Neos or any, you know, the near-Earth orbiting asteroids or anything like that. They weren't concerned about it at all. Well, then subsequently during a conversation, I found out that in fact they were. This caused a mild dust-up, which was then heightened because of information from her relative. The information from her relative was in fact that they were aware that there would be an Islamic attack upon the United States as early, meaning they were aware as early as the mid-1990s that it would be coming sometime in the new millennium. Well, right on, smack on the beam. That made it worse. I had told him that if he ever lied to me again, I would make him pay a price for it. The simple price was naming him.
Okay. But
and after that, there has been conversation with that particular individual since, and everybody's okay with everybody. I mean, 20 years, more than 20 years. I first met the gentleman at the back of the Lambs in the museum. More than 20 years, since the mid-1970s. Relationship is not going to go by the wayside over a dust-up.
Sure, I understand. But the reason I'm alluding to that is that here's a case where
I know what you're alluding to.
Okay, where you don't know everything about what's happening, and you haven't necessarily been clued in to everything.
No, I haven't.
And so you are telling me that we don't go both ways in Stargates, and this is what you've been told. Mm-hmm. Okay, and you are telling me that there's only 2 races, maybe a third that's doesn't have
3 races plus us, maybe a 4th.
Okay, so all I can say here is this is interesting because we have gotten testimony from a lot of different witnesses, people who have different psychic abilities, who have come from the inside, from Black Ops, like our Henry Deacon, telling us that we are accessing Stargates constantly and going, in fact, between the Earth and Mars, and going between the Earth and the Moon, and possibly other places as well. In other words, not just that we're staying out of space or out of the Stargates because the Orions tell us to.
Well, they were used. They were used in timeline number 2 to gradually access Moon and Mars. Now, there is a possibility that the information that he has or has to do with a future timeline. That would make sense to me on that level, but not on the level of, hey honey, let's take the kids to Olympus Mons today.
No, but how about if the military is sending equipment back and forth, et cetera, et cetera?
Okay. The Orions could trust us so much where they could hand us a cube and we misused it to the state that we misused it, where they then had to inflict a treaty system upon us.
Are they running our country? Are they running our world?
No. They're simply constraining what we're able to do. No. Now, we're running our own show down here, meaning when I say we, I'm not talking about the common folks that are, like being starved to death every day. We're running our own show politically down here. These statements about, well, these are mind-controlled this or that, automatons working for the ETs and the government. No. These are good-hearted and black-hearted people, both, all fighting each other to run the geopolitical scenario. That is an honest, assessment from what I've seen, what's going on. But we are constrained as to what we're allowed to do. meaning where we are allowed presently to off-world.
I understand.
You know, very nice, very nice. We placed our hands on our hips, and Underdog flew the American flag on the moon, and we showed ourselves so wonderful and all of that over the Soviets. But that doesn't mean that we're quite able at this point to go and camp out for too long.
Okay, so now you're telling me why we're not theoretically, or we haven't gone back to the moon, at least overtly.
We're busy, right? We're busy throwing sticks and stones at each other. And another reason why why we cannot go back there is part of the treaty system allows us to have a certain repository set somewhere on the moon, and that repository is presently there.
Okay.
And that is in case the T2 timeline should eventuate, or there should be a geological or a global catastrophe of like size.
Okay, which
and
is
it's
the
there.
arc, what you called the arc.
Yeah.
Okay, which, from what I understand, used to exist here on the planet.
Well, in several pieces.
Right. Okay, so they took it up to the moon somehow.
Yeah, it was
It went through
assembled
the
and
Stargate?
no. That was going to. In fact, they were building equipment up north from here, and they ended up getting it about 3/4 of the way built. I actually told Bill Hamilton about this when we were walking on the Jeep Road out at Frenchman Mountain one night, and he says, "Well, where's it going to go?" I looked like that and kind of pointed up, and there the orb was heading. He says, "Ah."
Okay, but you call it an arc. Is this something
Well, that's
that
a nickname
people,
for it.
But it sounds like it's going to save creatures.
It's got genetic and tissue and other products.
From us.
Yeah.
Okay, other creatures on the planet as
Oh
well,
yes.
animals,
Oh yes.
plants.
Yes. A very good biodiversity. Yes.
I see. And it's sitting on the moon in case there's something very bad that happens down here. Is that the idea?
Yes.
Okay. From the moon, where does it go?
It doesn't.
Oh, really? But the moon's not like, the most inhabitable planet. out
No, but it's the place that we're allowed to be right now.
Okay.
Do I sound like I'm weighing my words?
Yes. Okay, well,
It's your job to ask the questions. It's my job to answer them as honestly and as truthfully as I am able, while being honorable and beneficial.
Okay. And we do thank you for that. Regardless of what other people think.
Well, I mean,
there's a huge amount.
I know the exact spot that the thing is setting there. All right?
Yes.
I know what it looks like. I know how many pieces there are. I was involved in looking at and assisting with the biospherics on
Right.
it. I know exactly where it sets.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens if I say exactly where it sets and something happens to it?
Sure.
I can't take that on my back.
I understand.
Go back to the 50s
All right.
here for a second. An interesting thing happened. We were talking about the cube and all of that, and the meetings with Eisenhower and the Orions, the delegates. An interesting thing, and I'm just referring to this, of course, because it happens to reference from the intelligence community the appropriate event, albeit it was being said at the time during a different context. This is referencing a hearing of the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, the nomination of Mike McConnell to be Director of National Intelligence, and this was at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Thursday, February the 1st, 2007. And Mr. McConnell, the Honorable Vice Admiral, said the following, quote, "Senator, some years ago, I think 50s, 60s, there was a battle in the community with regard to authorities for signals intelligence." Of course, signals intelligence communication, and people can read between the lines, I think. "And decisions were taken finally to cause the director of the National Security Agency to have responsibility for signals intelligence, or SIGINT, as we refer to it, with regard to establishing priorities overseeing the technology, ensuring it's conducted in an appropriate way, the training standards are right, and investments are correct, and so on. I got a little report here, which was released on 17 February of 2003. This was actually sent to me by Bill Hamilton, and it was written by a person named Matt Guza. I don't know who the person is, aside from Director IC USUFOIC. And he reports the following. Aquarius background. Aquarius and other information. Says Aquarius findings briefly described below, because it was being, for some reason, Project Aquarius was being looked at very closely at the time. Number one, from what we have found, we believe that it started in 1953 alongside of the Project Blue Book ordeal. Now 53, let's think, what happened in 53? This is pretty much around the same time, general time frame as the Eisenhower thing, within a year. 53 was also the time when a certain craft dumped in Arizona, as I recall, right near Kingman, involving two P+45J rods and a P+52. The P45 was the one met by Bill Uhouse, and of course the P45 was the P52. I had the great honor. But the theory on the drawing board at this time is that it started as an USAF black project and was overtaken by the intelligence community due to the content and the secrecy. From investigating the past interest of the USAF and UFOs, it seems that the USAF weighed their investigation too much on non-scientific data. This would explain the need for the intelligence community investigation. Said we can read between the lines here. Herein, after finding and seeing this, or due to other issues, the intelligence community took Aquarius out of the hands of the USAF. Isn't that funny how these two things coordinate with one another?
Well, what do you? Okay, what are you trying to say? Are you trying to say that
that there was an obvious illusion? There was an obvious allusion here in the testimony to the Honorable Vice Admiral McConnell,
right,
to situations which were going on during the 1950s involving the present relationship between we and the extraterrestrial species. Yeah.
Okay.
There seems to be a rather direct correlation here. And then the fact that later on during the intelligence community interview of Mr. McConnell, there was even an allusion to
the same time period.
Well, to timeline changes. Senator Rockefeller. This gives my heart good saying his name. I regret to say that my time has run out. And I think somebody's manipulating this clock, because that much time hasn't gone by. Oh my heavens. And then a woman walked in who was from another committee. And that would be Susan Collins, I believe. But the fact that there was a manipulation of a clock comment going on and this, and there are several, well, I've got it tabbed up as to the relationships here, but what I'm trying to, I guess, show the folks is how things are said publicly.
Yes, absolutely. So, but what is interesting is how many in Congress know what's really being said.
Well, the head of the committee here, this committee was chaired by John D. Rockefeller IV, Democrat of West Virginia. And there is
I have no doubt that Rockefeller is in the loop. But
well, I have little doubt that he is in the loop as well, and may have been in the larger loop as opposed to not the Majestic 12 loop. Anyway.
Being a member of the Illuminati.
No. There was a larger group that existed between 63 and 67 properly in approximately 2002 called the Committee of the Majority.
Oh, okay. Okay, well then, all right.
I mean, you know, you got people like Rockefeller that can call the war that happened in 1991 as the Persian Gulf Procedure. That's right, he actually called it the Persian Gulf Procedure.
Fascinating.
Wasn't a procedure that I was in, but anyway.
Okay, well, we've heard that since then, it's now called, there's 40 members, and it's called, isn't it the PI 40?
That's an
the new
old
name?
That's an old name.
That's an old name.
That's an old name for it.
So what you're saying, or what is being said here, is that there is some catastrophic events that have been mitigated to some degree, hopefully, by a certain amount of unity on the planet and a certain amount of effort towards the positive. And I'm assuming
And removal of equipment, yeah.
okay, but they removed the equipment because the equipment told them to remove it? In other words,
They removed the equipment because the history indicated that the equipment was operating during the time of the catastrophe and was a proximate cause to the catastrophe by increasing the amount of energy into our asthenosphere and causing a global catastrophe.
well, it's just that. In a sense, the equipment was telling, you know, it's almost like...
well, it was the equipment and it was the
2001.
delegates. It was also the delegates to the treaties and the representatives, including
meaning
Kaela.
the Orions were saying, hey guys, it's the equipment, shut it down and you'll have better luck?
They were the leading force in that, yes.
Really? Okay, now I'm going to ask you something that may come across a little controversial, but what...
No, we have been talking about such prosaic items all evening.
No, but
I'm not certain I
what
could...
makes you think that they had our best futures in mind when they told us to turn that equipment off? In other words, why should we believe them?
Well, we should believe them simply because of the possibility and because we're talking about 4.5 billion up to 5 billion people here. All right. Now, let's think about this for a moment. If we leave the equipment in place and nothing happens, so what? What is the harm in removing it?
Right.
Now, that would be the corollary question to the question that you just asked. If they don't have our best interest at heart, how would our removing that equipment prevent the catastrophe that we're hearing about from 3 different cultures, meaning the Orions, the J-Rods, and the J-Rods from earlier times? How would removing that equipment proximate the catastrophe? Only leaving the equipment in place would be the dangerous move. So there's no harm in unloading a gun, but there is a possible harm in having it loaded.
Sure. It's like the joke of believing in God. It's like the Sufi joke about whether you believe in God or not. If you don't believe in God and there is no God, there's no harm. But if you do believe in God and there is a God, it's going to be a good thing in the end, right?
Well, it may take you a few more trips back, but
okay. So
I don't know. That's up to God.
Right. Well, in a sense, that's what you're saying.
This is an issue of practicality.
Yeah.
If we have a piece of equipment there that could possibly cause us harm, let's say they're wrong and it doesn't. You better pull it apart anyway. We're talking about the consequence of nearly 5 billion people.
Okay. What about
we would be
the
stupid
idea,
not to, in other words.
Okay. What about the natural stargates that still exist on the planet?
What has been heard from my background concerning the natural Stargate issue is what was going on at Frenchman Mountain. And to access that, they were using one of the Stargate devices. They had it hauled out there.
Okay, I mean, for example, Sedona has several vortexes.
Oh, sure, they're all over the place.
Yeah. And there are several natural vortexes, just to create, even a cyclone or a hurricane creates a sort of a vortex.
Sure.
Okay?
Sure.
Through which certain races can travel in their ships, it is said. Okay?
Okay.
Do you have anything to say about that?
No.
Okay. Those are natural stargates.
Oh, the meaning a portal which does not require hardware?
Sure.
Oh. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. Well, I guess I could probably make some sort of a comment relative Lotus. There is a possibility that the portals that we're seeing during Project Lotus may be micro wormholes. And certainly, at least information is being carried through those portals from somewhere to here, and it's causing an effect in the environment. Now, we're assessing presently to see whether or not they are naturally produced. And in August, owing to certain circumstances, we're planning on running tests out at Frenchman Mountain to determine whether or not it is a natural phenomenon. Possibly.
Okay.
I mean, you know, you could say that a travel in time could be a warp produced by a gravimetric device of a craft. You can move large distances in little to no time. So I'm not certain what the difference is, physically or mathematically, between that and what is being called an Einstein-Rosen bridge. You would need a physicist for that. I'm used to working on cells. And
right. But, you know, and in a
Hello? Hello? Oh, I pressed the wrong. I pressed record.
Hello?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
What's going on? Oh, I can hear you. Yeah, I'm sitting there.
Oh,
I'm sitting there like, do we need to like do ET phone home and stuff? And
I know. I was like, what the fuck?
hold on just a second. Let me turn up the volume. I took my Bluetooth off. I'm sitting there and he's explaining. Did we lose Steven? We did, and I mean, the guy was in the middle of explaining something, and it was getting really good. And all of a sudden, it froze, and I'm like, okay. And then I looked, and it showed Jessica as the host, and we're still live. So his stuff has been compromised. He or something has made Jessica host, and we lost the video. And we lost the host. We did, and because on my screen it shows we're still live. We're still live streaming. Wow, isn't that interesting? So we can give this, and this will be an example of how difficult it is to get the truth out. Constant this is a great example from of that. Big tech. I mean, this is what happens. So we all get interference from reporting the truth. If it's not Facebook banning, or if it's, I mean, it just dropped Stephen, which was, pretty much the, I don't know, the tech person, and that live streams it to different platforms and everything. So it was like the main, well, we don't go by hierarchy or anything like that. Our team doesn't anyway, but it, just somebody that just started it, just completely dropped, made somebody else host. I mean, this is like seriously, wow. That was weird. Live on air. Thank God we're now, instead of showing people or telling people, we're showing them. The host dropped off. We don't know where the host went. Yeah, we don't know where he left, but he took off. I mean, he wouldn't do that in the middle of a video. I was so mad. I'm like, it started to get good. Oh, he said, okay. He says, he said, hold on. He's switching. Yeah. To his hotspot. I don't know what happened. He didn't say. I know, but still, though, that's only one example. It's happened before, where it may not be that he just dropped off, but like something was really like screwy. Well, the rumble is black. Oh, is it? Okay, because I don't know what's going on. I don't know either, but because gosh, do you remember in one of the episodes? I don't remember which podcast it was or anything. We've got several of them. It's hard to keep track. But the interference that I got. I remember the one time, where it was like a horn or something. Like, I don't know. It was the weirdest noise. Yep. It was a high, super.
You guys, my fucking internet went out.
There he is. There you are. Okay, we're live.
My internet fucking went out right in the middle of the fucking broadcast. I'm so fucking pissed right now.
Hey, calm down. Hold on, I think we're still live because it flipped over to Jessica as host.
Yeah, well, we're not doing anything. Fucking, I don't even know. I can't even. My Zoom malfunctioned and threw me out.
Yeah, we know.
Made Angie host.
My fucking hotspot.
Oh, it made me host?
I made you host.
Oh, okay.
That way you can see everything.
I don't think we went off air though.
No, we didn't go off air, but let's just redo this another time. This is bullshit.
No, calm down. Rerun it. This is a good example. We don't need to redo nothing. This is an example.
I don't have time.
Okay, then we'll do it.
We're gonna have to reschedule it. I don't have time to fucking do it. I gotta go to the store. I got shit I gotta do today.
Oh,
all right, just can't. All right, bye.
I thought we were gonna do the DJ L7.
Well, that was part of what I gotta do. Let me see if it's. Are we still live on Facebook? Let me see if I can bring this back up.
Okay.
Calm down.
I'm just like, why? Why in the middle of the fucking day, Cox, are you gonna
calm down?
Dude, that should piss me off.
No, I know.
That should piss me off. All right, let's see if we can get going again. What a clusterfuck.
Oh, extreme on me.
Yeah, they shut his down too. They keep blocking him. DJ L7.
It's not just.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That's how much they don't want the truth out.
Yep.
Can you guys see my screen? Sorry, I had to go. My mom was freaking out. She accidentally got herself into recovery mode on the phone.
Oh.
She didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
I thought maybe for a minute it wasn't just the internet, but no, it looks like it was. That's weird. All right, let's try this again.
But when does your internet go out and like flip a host to somebody else?
Never done that.
That's
yeah,
weird.
that's that's a little strange.
Usually when it goes out, it's in the middle of the night when nobody's using it.
Yeah, but wouldn't it just shut down the whole Zoom call and not flip somebody else to the host? I would think.
I don't know. You would think.
Yeah, I would think that like we all would have just been cut off.
That's what I would have thought too.
Strange.
But it didn't. That was weird.
Yeah, no, that's strange. That's all I say is
Yeah, that was quite
One
interesting.
other time though, it did that one other time. It made me a host. Remember, me and Jen and Dottie, me and Jen and Angie were all talking, and Angie got off, and it made me host all of a sudden. It bumped me.
All right, let me see.
Weird.
Well, I ended the Telegram already because fucking I didn't think it was going to connect me after I realized that.
Well, Rumble is just a black screen from what I can see.
Yeah, I know. I know. What the fuck? It's saying recording in progress. What the hell? Oh, the recording for okay, gotcha. I was wondering what that meant. I never seen that before. All right, cool. It looks like we're back. All right, so let's just continue and see if we can go from there. Oh shit. Sorry, I accidentally closed out of the wrong tab.
It's cool.
I think we're still live. Hold on.
Oh yeah.
Shit. I don't think we're live anymore. At least we might be on Facebook. I don't know. I've never had this happen before. This is weird. Not like this anyway. Why don't we well, it looks like everybody can still see my screen. I don't know.
Let's just completely black on Rumble. I'm not seeing anything like.
Okay, then let's fuck. Damn it. All right, let's
That was good too, man.
That was
good stuff.
Why do they want to? Why are they trying to interfere with our little?
Oh, are they? Is that part of the rolling blackout shit that we're gonna start experiencing? I wonder.
You know why?
That's what I was thinking. I was wondering about that.
I wonder if that's
because
like
they
that.
couldn't infiltrate us. They couldn't send
now.
somebody to break up our team, and they tried that, and it didn't work. So now they're trying to fuck up the interference completely, like to where we can't even get on.
Right. Well, they don't
Yeah,
know.
they're supposed to start having some rollout, like blackouts.
Oh yeah.
That's what I was thinking too, Dottie.
Huh?
That's what I was thinking too.
Yeah. That just like popped in my head. So that probably might be what's going on. I wonder if your neighbors and stuff experienced it.
Well, usually when our internet goes out, theirs goes out because it's all connected to the same.
That's what I'm saying. I wonder if you like your neighbors and stuff experienced it, or if that was just you personally.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, not just the ones next to you, but like all your neighbors. Like,
I would ask them.
Let me let's go to my internet provider and see. Maybe there might be an outage too.
They might tell you something.
Yeah.
Some lady just walked up and put something in my mailbox.
Uh-oh.
Like, you got a crime? That's a
we're live on Rumble. We're live on Rumble still. Okay, cool. Let's and we're live on Facebook.
Isn't it against the law to put stuff in people's mailbox?
I think so, yeah.
I think it's like a federal crime to like open someone's mailbox and put something in it.
Only if you open their mail, I think it is. Not if you open their
No,
mailbox.
I think because when I was a process server and I served court documents, we couldn't open mailboxes, we couldn't look in them, we couldn't leave papers in them. It was against the law. It was a federal crime.
Weird. Well, a lot of people don't have like your standard key mailboxes. Some people have those like just old fashioned ones too.
Yeah, well, mine's an old one. You can just open it.
Get open the mailbox. Like,
I think it's just a known thing that people are just supposed to know that you're not supposed to mess with someone's mail or open their mailbox or really even touch their mailbox.
I think it's their mail, not their mailbox. I'm pretty sure. I think
it's the mailbox too.
Mailbox?
Well, it was when I was a server. We couldn't mess with the mailbox. Like we don't even touch them.
All right, we seem to be still live. I don't even know how we're going to end the live because I'm on.
Whenever we were dealing with that one guy, he got mad because we were trying to expose aliens, and he got really mad about it. And then all of a sudden, we started having problems, like really bad problems. Then, and like it's happening.
Well,
again.
it could be interference by bad actors. Could be a couple of different things. But I don't know if it looks like there's an outage. It doesn't look like there's an outage.
Not at all.
What do you mean your payment is due? I paid my fucking bill already. What are you talking about, Cox? Are you fucking kidding me? I paid. No, that's the name of the company. It's like Comcast on the West Coast.
I know, that's why I was just laughing.
That's too funny.
Yeah, but they're Cox in two different ways right now.
What in the hell is going on here? Hold on, I wasn't logged in. It might be. No, wrong email. Shit. I'm sharing my screen. I don't want to do that.
Okay, so mailboxes are protected by federal law, and crimes against them and the mail they contain are considered a federal offense. Violators can be fined up to $250,000 or imprisoned for up to 3 years for each act of vandalism. Just so you know, since I was talking about the mailbox.
Oh, you should call the cops on her.
I don't know who she was.
Press charges. Be like, this bitch just touched my mailbox.
Well, like I think they were in a vehicle, but they parked like where my blind spots are with my cameras.
I mean, unless she was giving you a check, I would call the cops.
Okay, so I've already. No, the bill for this month is paid. They're talking about for next month. I paid that on the 3rd. Network looks good. They're not having. Doesn't look like they're having any outages, so that was odd.
Mm-hmm.
It could be just that.
It wasn't the internet. It wasn't a rolling blackout. Your apartment didn't you didn't have too much stuff in a socket where did you lose electricity?
No, but there is a lot of stuff that we brought into my mom's room recently that we're moving to storage. So that could be something in the room might have fallen and knocked it loose too.
Okay.
I don't know. I can't even get to the modem right now. It's so crowded in there.
Okay. So something might have hit it. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Neighbors
thinking.
mad at you?
Neighbors.
Yeah.
Most of my neighbors, we're a pretty tight knit community, so I don't think it could be.
Good.
Yeah, I don't really mess with them. I don't really fuck with people too much, anyways.
You know, like Jen's boyfriend, he got a jammer and he started messing up her internet.
It could be something like that, but if it would be anybody, I would think it would be freaking recent parties that we have had issues with. That's what I would think, but I'm not going to say any names on the air.
Yeah.
But I'm sure everybody knows what I'm talking about. Huh?
Parties myself.
Well, let's try and continue and resume it from where we left off. I'm operating off my hotspot on my mobile hotspot I got through my provider. So let's rewind it like 5 minutes and then go from there.
Yeah, because that was good stuff we were listening to.
Yeah, I was.
That was really odd.
It is a natural phenomenon. Possibly.
Okay.
I mean, you could say that a travel in time could be a warp produced by a gravimetric device of a craft. You can move large distances in little to no time. So I'm not certain what the difference is, physically or mathematically, between that and what is being called an Einstein-Rosen bridge. You would need a physicist for that. I'm used to working on cells.
Right. But, and in a sense, if Lotus is creating some kind of Stargate effect.
Oh, that's
even
wonderful.
Micro wormhole.
That's wonderful if it is.
It is wonderful, but in a sense, you might also have to let go of Lotus in that sense if it is going to impact.
Oh, I have. I have. In fact, but for more tangible reasons. We brought the fine art of producing these portals for demonstration up to a science. We knew exactly what to do, know exactly what to do to propagate them with nearly 100% efficiency. They range in size, thus far that we've seen, between about 0.02 millimeters, so about 20 microns, to up to a millimeter. When we produce them now in the field, they're approximately a millimeter in diameter. And that's putting a heck of a lot of energy in, 50 times more energy than what we would do through the microscope. But we brought it to the point where it was a beautiful thing, where I could hook the right optics train on the scope, propagate with the use of a laser and electricity, and turn them on immediately on the surface of a silicate. And then we started getting things coming through on this end, or at least results in the medium around the crystal or around the silicate material that we were using, which were not normal. Cells of anomalous origin, self-organizing cells, which appeared to be organizing in one case. We did a variant of the ancient Lazzaro-Spallanzani experiment, historic experiment concerning beef broth, and to rule out spontaneous generation. And we had a very nice AB neuronal type pattern formed by cells that were self-organizing, and they were clearly morphologically, they appeared like neurons in this soup that we had, and so we had some real problems developing. We had two other consequences where we had what were produced were anomalous cells of unknown quality and
coming through.
Well, what we had is we had an organization, I think, going on this end. Now we're coming very close, and more is going to be said about a year about this, but we're coming close to determining the mechanism. And what it appears thus far is that there is an opening to a somewhere which is then placed in communication with our environment acoustically. And then there is a series of reactions with microshards of silicate material or microshards of quartz in our environment, which then become actually spontaneously, or nearly so, enclosed with material from our environment. And they move off to various locations and actually have effects on target cells in our environment. And so it's apparently based acoustically.
Okay, but that's understandable, although it's complex, and I'm not a biologist, so I don't pretend to understand all of it. But I understand where you're going with this. But in essence, to get back to Stargates, because that's the subject of this.
Really? Am I still?
No, you're there. But the thing is that what I'm curious about
I'm loosening the lock on the camera, so it gradually.
is I'm actually curious whether or not these natural stargates that do occur in nature are not being accessed by beings, whether they be the Orions or whoever, at will, into this dimension.
I've got no information that the P-52 Orions or P-52J rods or the P-45J rods are accessing such a system, save the use of time travel technology, gates to move from one spot to another, and then the use of craft for moving from there to here. Meaning from a spot in reticulum, for instance, to a place in the Aquarius system, Gliese, or however it's properly said, and then, which is the origin of, from what I understand, of Project Aquarius itself, because they were known to be coming from that direction, and that is, I believe, in the Aquarius constellation. But
Because they're not.
They use craft then to
dependent
move
on
from
us.
there to here, but they're using a gravimetric technology to warp time space. So I suppose that could be the same use, but I don't think it's a situation kind of like, you walk out into a wilderness and you see a whole parade of people coming through a Stargate with 4 heads and 16 eyes and
Well,
things
what
like
about
that.
a whole parade of crafts?
I don't know. It's the best answer I can give. Most honest one I can give. I don't know. I have not, in 20 years of history, of history with Majestic, heard of anything like that from them, meaning as part of either a treaty system or an ongoing operation. However, I've also heard reports of craft being seen in the sky. I've seen craft in the sky, which I was not directly involved, like the May Boyer Park incident in '73. I've seen what I believe. Well, I have to say lights in the sky,
Well,
not craft.
We've seen. Come on. We've seen.
She has seen craft, and she's not feeding me full a line
Any night,
of bull.
You can stare at the sky and see the crafts zipping around.
Well, there are meteors too, and
but-
there are also experimental aircraft. Of various types. There are also back-engineered aircraft, which are being spotted too. The triangles.
All I'm saying is that according to what you're saying, there is a treaty in which we had stargates or access to wormholes that we mechanically opened and closed.
Yes.
Based on a treaty system in which we were allowed to get information and send information back and forth, but that we didn't use to go out, but they used to come in, is what you're telling me.
Substantially, yes.
Okay, but we've closed all those down,
Yes.
according to what you're telling us.
Yes.
Okay, so now I'm asking.
Where's the yellow book? No.
No, but there are natural stargates out there that they can use anytime they want. So they no longer have use of our stargates. So it's in a sense of a treaty.
Well,
They have access anywhere.
okay, if they
anytime.
do, let's posit if they do for a moment. The ones that we have to be concerned about would be the P-45s.
Okay.
Because they are looking to justify their own history. They would be very happy, aside from being paid off constantly, they would be very happy to see their own history justified.
How are they paid off?
They're paid off with technology, with assistance. In the past, they were paid off with a certain number of abductions per year.
What would they do with those people?
Aside from a longitudinal genetic drift study, that's enough. Some of them were literally handed over, and I consider it illegal, and I consider it a violation of international law. I consider it a crime against humanity, and that's why I did what I did to stand up against it as best as I could and to get it off the books.
What about the idea that some P-45s have shape-shifted, excuse the terminology, but into human form, are here working in the government under a human form, furthering their own, demands
It's a substantial.
on history?
It is a substantial probability that they have the ability, because I've interacted with ones that would ostensibly look human, and I really don't like talking about the so-called man in black or men in black.
Right, but I understand when you talk about
phenomenon.
the men in black, those were people that are beings that, and you went in our last discussion into quite a description of that kind of being. But I'm talking about somebody who is acting like you and me, looking like you and me, absolutely undetectable.
No.
And still could be furthering, or could even be.
If they are, they're not J-rods. If they are, they're not J-rods. Orions, possible. They are very, very brilliant people. The short interactions, very short interactions that I had with them, I was impressed, whereas I would not want to be spending that much time around P-45s at all. I would have enjoyed In fact, I would have felt privileged speaking with them further.
Are you talking about, when you say Orions, are you talking about the Nordics?
I think that's how they're usually they've been called talls or tall.
Yeah, but I mean,
they're essentially the anthropomorphic, very tall human beings with blonde hair, very large eyes, very blue, pretty eyes, larger than our eyes as in ratio to cranium size. The orbits are larger, etc. Just brilliant. Just absolutely brilliant people. And what I found most intriguing about them is how they modulated what I consider their brilliance through emotion. The emotions coming from them were so less rudimentary. They were so more complex than what even I experienced with Kaela. I would have really enjoyed spending some more time with them.
Okay, but they're here on this planet interacting with us.
Well, they interacted with us. I'm not certain if there are presently any on Earth or not right now. Okay. I would say that they're 50,000 years, a little more than that, ahead of us. Given the similarity between body structure, between size even and body structure, cephalothoracic to thoracic ratio, similar enough. I think they could probably, if their eyes didn't look the way their eyes look, they could probably get away with walking around. Okay. But their eyes are, they're way larger than ours, and they look like, essentially like these Bratz dolls that the little tween girls are going after nowadays. The eyes are too large. You see these eyes, these hypersized eyes. I mean, it's fine on a Bratz doll, but if you walk this thing out onto the street, it's going to get picked out very quickly.
Okay.
So I just don't think so. Now, I at the same time, I have to say, are they smart enough to probably get away with it? Figure out how? Maybe. I doubt it, personally, because I've met a lot of very interesting, but a few strange people in the last 4.5 years talking with the public who believe that there are literally reptilians walking around that are wearing masks and things like that. No. I'm a little more rooted in reality. I hate to put it that way, but no. I joked with her that I wanted to do something over at the first place where we were at for my debriefing. I said, when the debriefing gets done, what I wanted to do is I wanted to hire some special effects people for real. Would end the debriefing, and then we would stop, and then we would begin filming with another camera. And I was just suggesting a joke. It never got pulled off. Somebody... What I was going to do is have a special effects person work me up with my face over the top of a reptilian face, and I was going to rip it off and go, God, I'm tired of these human masks. And just have this little segment put out there as a joke. But she told me that people would take it seriously.
I said people would believe it. You can't do that. People believe it. It's true.
I don't know. I've got a strange sense of humor, I guess.
Okay, but you had a dealing with P-45s, P-52s, and these beings are, their treaty system is being adhered to because they are here in underground bases, monitoring us at all times, because otherwise, how do they know that we are abiding by so-called treaty? Because supposedly we broke treaties. Isn't this right?
Well, we have strained. We have strained the treaty system more than once. So have the P-45s.
Right. So
we have in fact come into conflict with one another at certain times. These conflicts have been amicably resolved. And we are presently in an amicable state with one another. we're not the only ones with the looking glass technology that can look into other timelines. In other words, they have the equipment too.
Sure.
And so it's not that difficult for those who might be wishing to enforce the treaty on their great ancestors, to look into the present time as an expression of them looking into their own past and watching it change.
Okay, so in a sense you're saying they know what we're going to do before we do it.
They know the probabilities. And so they are substantially capable of interacting with us if they feel that those probabilities are moving to eventuate their own history as they have it written for them as being an outcome. And they find that, the P-52s find that as an unacceptable outcome.
So they're pushing their advantage whenever they can.
They're pushing the advantage of not justifying their own past, so that they may either split off on their own timeline, but that their own history would not eventuate a catastrophe. Now, if you consider that pushing their own advantage, sure. Now, the P-45s, the characterization that you placed pushing their own advantage, I would say that was an appropriate characterization.
Well, I was
that they would be,
yeah.
The P-52s are much more amicable and a little farther along. I just say that they're a little more spiritually adept, the P-52 Orions, certainly more than the P-45 J-Rods. They're extremely mechanical, very, very logical, yet ruthless. Extremely.
You're speaking of the P-45.
Yeah, they have no problem picking up somebody like me out of the middle of a park and shoving a probe up his wazoo to test him, yeah. Yeah, they've got no problem with that at all. I have, however, a substantial problem with that, and I think other folks who have been largely abducted, not everybody, but a fair number of them also have a problem with that.
Okay, what about the idea that we have somebody, Jim Sparks, I don't know if you know who he is, he's written a book called The Keepers recently.
I'm aware of Jim Sparks, as he is the personal friend of a couple of folks with whom we became close acquaintances. Okay,
so he's telling us that he has conscious recall of his abduction experiences, and that groups of people were abducted by what sounds like P-45s, because they have real issues with control. And put in front
Boy,
of
that was said nicely.
and put in front of computer screens and shown scenes of the Earth, first a beautiful Earth and potentially fantastic futures, and then shown the opposite of that, so that what would be generated in these people is a love of the planet and a desire to make it a better place.
And also there is an aim to this. They are aware that our emotions affect our state, our physical state, that our orientation to the energies which are available from the cosmos, if you will, affect the state of our DNA, affect the state of our health, and they are applying that as an experimental protocol, a rubric, if you will, to change the state of the people on board so that they can sample them for biological material. The fact of what we take away from it is aside the point. That is just whatever we take away, and then it's our take on it, and then a person, an experiencer, if you will, then goes off into our world and says how he or she feels about the experiment, or about what they were subjected to, or about what they were shown. But there's a cold, hard, cruel reality involved here that we are being picked up from biological material as an experimental protocol.
Okay, meaning what these people that are being abducted are doing is providing, DNA, providing eggs and sperm so that they can, experiment or create their own future beings.
What they're trying to do is they're trying to ameliorate their own neuropathology, which is already starting and is becoming an issue within their populace at their timeline concerning reproduction.
But how many people do they need to figure that out?
Well, as many as what they wanted to take until they get the answer figured out, and they really don't care, because it's the old proposition of the anthill along the side of the road in Africa. We are to them, from their perspective, the ants on the anthill, and how would we feel about stepping on 1 or 2 ants or a few million ants out of an anthill? It may cause a few people with, I consider, higher intelligence, some moral problems just stepping on them, but how much would we really care about that? They feel that way about us. They want to use us as biological material, watch us get destroyed to justify their own background, their own history, and at the same time take the biological material from us and solve their own personal present problems.
Okay, but how are we fighting them?
What do you mean?
In other words, you've just told me they have a tremendous amount of control. They're abducting a huge number of people, and they're continuing their experiments.
Well, they have. The numbers who are being abducted now are not treaty related. In other words, there is nobody being taken presently. 0 authorized by treaty. I can't stop them from taking people out of their beds at night, but I did influence the other. Is it rolling?
I'm rolling.
Because H.G. Wells, the epilogue in his Time Machine, I read the Time Machine by H.G. Wells. I keep this on my desk.
Okay.
It says, one cannot choose but to wonder, will he ever return? It may be that he swept back into the past and fell among the blood-drinking, hairy savages of the age of unpolished stone, into the abyss of the Cretaceous Sea, or among the grotesque saurians, the huge reptilian brutes of the Jurassic times. He may even now, if I may use the phrase, be wandering on some plesiosaurus-haunted oolitic coral reef, or beside the lonely saline lakes of the Triassic Age. Or did he go forward into one of the nearer ages in which men are still men, but with the riddles of our own time answered and its wearisome problems solved? Into the manhood of the race, for I, for my own part, cannot think that these latter days of weak experiment, fragmentary theory, and mutual discord are indeed man's culminating time. I say for my own part, he I know, for the question had been discussed among us long before the time machine was made, thought but cheerlessly of the advancement of mankind, and saw in the growing pile of civilization only a foolish heaping that must inevitably fall back upon and destroy its makers in the end. If that is so, it remains for us to live as though it were not so. But to me the future is still black and blank, is a vast ignorance, lit at a few casual places by the memory of his story. And I have by me for my comfort 2 strange white flowers shriveled now, and brown and flat and brittle, to witness that even when mind and strength had gone, gratitude and a mutual tenderness still lived on in the heart of man. That means a lot to me. I actually hold on to that, and I hold on to that so much as such a prescient bit of thought that I actually keep the flowers from my great-grandmother's grave in there with it. I don't know what's going to happen in the future, and all I can do is hope like everybody else and pray like everybody else.
Okay. Well, thank you, Dan. And I understand that we've actually overtaxed you and asked you, an incredible amount of information here, and you've been very generous, and I really want to thank you.
Well, it's my responsibility to say truth.
Okay. Well, you definitely do that, and what I would like to also say is, how do we fight them? For the people that are out there, and what we know is unity is one way in which we are progressing out of a certain timeline into another, right?
Yes.
Okay. But if you have anything else to add to that for people.
Well, to me, it's a unit.
Constant vigilance.
Yes.
Constant vigilance.
That's good. That's very good. Constant vigilance. Also, there are many operatives, not just like Marcia and myself, but many operatives who are coming out of the old Majestic who have had experiences like this. Most of those operatives are not willing to say anything. However, that doesn't mean that they're not doing things. We are acting in concert with some of those operatives and with other groups to try to motivate the information from the inside, which could be used for the beneficial application for humanity, to humanity. And we're doing our very best to motivate that through. And some of it is being seen in very little snippets of it. The projects that we're proposing that are going to be coming in the future, like Argo and ISIS. I guess the only thing I can really say, aside from the constant vigilance, is to act to the right. When a wrong needs to be righted, or there needs to be a stand taken for what is right versus wrong, that our present time doesn't mean that we're so modern we have to get rid of the ideal for the real. We create our own reality, and so we should, in my view, act toward the ideal to create a better real for ourselves.
Well, that was quite fascinating and interesting, I think. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
So, all right, let me bring up a couple of these articles.
I think it's really interesting.
Go ahead.
I was just saying, I think it's really interesting what he was talking about. Definitely, I believe him. You know, I believe what he's saying, like his demeanor and things, you know,
Right.
the way he would act about certain things. I mean, there's no way you almost couldn't not believe him, you know?
Right. And I think that there's a real possibility that he believes what he's telling us, you know, but we also got to keep in mind, he's probably very low on the totem pole in these projects. I mean, so it would make sense that
no crap.
right, probably only given bits and pieces, you know. I mean, it would make sense to me. It sounds like that's what's going on there. I mean, there's definitely some valuable information there for sure. But that's what we have to, but that's why it's important to use discernment, folks, because you have to be able to pick out separate the wheat from the chaff. Now, there was some similarities with certain things that he said that kind of like coincided with what other people said, but different, if you will, which was like, I've heard similar stuff, but variations on that. And,
well, we all have our own perception, so it's
right,
for sure, right?
Right,
you know?
Absolutely.
But either he's telling 100% truth, or he's telling what he really truly believes is truth. Like he either really believes it, and it's, you know, it's not. It's maybe, I don't know, hallucinations, whatever. Maybe his own thoughts. Maybe he thought it was real, but I believe him. Like he seems sincere. His body language, just everything. Like he came across really sincere to me. Like what he was saying was truthful.
Yeah. Me too.
And you know, it's funny because his information seems to coincide and corroborate some of Bob Lazar's information, who was whistleblower out of Area S4 in the late 80s.
Really?
Was interviewed by Jordan Knapp. Yeah. And so, like, according to Bob Lazar's information, because Bob Lazar was working on what was known as Project Galileo, and which was the reverse engineering of this ET craft reactor, basically how it operated. But in that testimony, he described other projects that he was not privy to that he saw in a briefing, and one of those was Operation Project Looking Glass. Now, according to Dan Bursch's information, that was at Area S4 on a lower level. but that definitely coincides with some of the information Bob Lazar said. Does that mean that I believe 100% everything that Dan Burisch says? Not necessarily, no. But there's a lot of good information there that I think we can use and kind of follow certain leads and see where it goes, and I think there's definitely some valuable insight there too, for sure,
Yeah.
But basically, when he was, I want to make something clear. When he was talking about the P-45s and the P-50s, P-50 Orions, in his testimony, he's talking about future humans is what he was describing. So that's what he was claiming in his story. I don't know if it really covered that in this interview, but I've looked at some other interviews that I've seen of him and some other information out there. So I don't know if the context was clear on that, but he was referring to, those were future humans, basically. That's why he kept referring to them. They went back and looked at their history because they was future humans, is according to his testimony.
Well, to me, it would.
Well, how future are they if everything's happening at once? Time's only here,
Right. Well, time is not linear like we think it is. It's right, really,
and it's like only here that it's like that. So
right.
I don't know. It could be happening right now, like our higher selves, or just like you know what I mean, like. Right.
Well, the description, what he described as these P-45s and P-50 Orions is your standard, what your standard gray looks like, your gray aliens. So that's kind of why I'm like, I think that he may have been, maybe for all we know that they lied to them. They lied to the people that was working there. For all we know, the P-50s and 45s were misleading and deceiving us. We don't know. We have no way of knowing.
Yeah, we do. We just have to go into our DNA. It's all stored there.
Well, no, I know, but no way of knowing outside of actually, like, it's kind of like up in the air as far as your average.
Never with outside. It's always within.
Right. No, you should. Yeah, that's some good advice. You should always look within, not without, folks. I think that's important information and knowledge because it all comes from within.
Our DNA stores it all. Since you've been, energy, since you became energy, it's all stored in your DNA and it's all there to tap into.
Yep. That's called DNA memory, folks. That's an actual thing, believe it or not. Let's see what I can bring up here. I'm going to bring up, where are we? Let's finish. Did we read the article last time we were doing this coverage last week? Did we
I believe we did read a couple articles.
Okay, so let's go to let's see, which one did we not bring? Did we cover the Aquarius information? Hold on. Oh yeah, see this is okay. Let's share. I don't know if I think we might have shared this last, but let's do it again for a recap, just so everybody's on the same page, because I think it's important. It's relevant. This article talks about the Bob Lazar connection a little bit. So, okay. Let's read this. Oh, it's not going to let, there we go.
Project Aquarius and the Story of Dr. Dan Burisch by William Hamilton. Revised October 25, 2005. Revision notice. The book on Project Aquarius will be published in November 2005. I have decided to reinstate this webpage for a number of reasons. There are a number of individuals who have mounted a concerted attack on the case of Dr. Dan Burisch, just as there have been a number of other individuals who have attacked the authenticity of the Bob Lazar story. One of the individuals is newscaster George Knapp of Las Vegas television station CLAS. In addition, a cadre of U.S. government agents or ex-agents such as Rick Doty, of FOSI, Gene Laskowski, pseudo last name Dia, and Paul McGovern, Dia, have on various tours of duty served at Area 51 and purport to know the truth about extraterrestrial visitation and reverse engineering projects conducted on the Nevada test site at S4 and who were friends of retired Major Tom Mack, who said he had known Dan Crane. Refute Dan Burisch's claim that he worked at S4 or that there was a J-Rod that had a degenerating condition as peripheral neuropathy. Since several witnesses have now signed notarized affidavits, including Dr. Dan Burisch, attesting to the truth of his claim, I am herewith posting these affidavits at the end of this page. Since Dan is receiving the full support of those he has worked for and is engaged in a full debrief of his 19 years of service to the members of Majestic, which will be made known in 2006. The truth will emerge, and until then, it is up to the student and reader to determine whether we are being enlightened or disinformed. William Hamilton. Power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Lord Acton, 1887. Liberty is not the power of doing what we like, but the right of being able to do what we ought. Lord Acton. We all remember the saga of Robert Lazar. He was the young man who stepped forward courageously, stating that he worked on a very top-secret reverse engineering project at a super-secret underground facility near Groom Lake and closer to Papoose Lake, known as S4. Robert Scott Lazar 1. According to Bob Lazar, the noted scientist Dr. Edward Teller, now deceased, was impressed with Bob and sent him to be interviewed at EG&G. As a result of this interview, he was hired by EG&G to work at the super-secret Area 51. According to Gene Huff, Lazar's friend and supporter, Bob reported to the EG&G building at McCarran Airport, which had runway access, where he was met by Dennis Mariani. Mariani was a security man of medium build and height, about 35 to 40 years old, blonde hair and a tightly cropped blonde mustache. Mariani had a military look and manner, but he didn't wear a uniform. With Mariani as his escort, Bob was flown out to Area 51 at Groom Lake. At Area 51, Bob had to sign a secrecy agreement and an agreement to waive his constitutional rights, which is illegal but was made possible by an executive order with Ronald Reagan's signature on it. He also had to sign an agreement which allowed them to monitor his phone line. Bob already had Q clearance, which is top secret civilian clearance, at Los Alamos, but he had never gone through anything like this. The clearance he was now attaining would require perpetual monitoring of his activities and would never simply be attained and forgotten about until the next review date. After some abrupt suggestions that he honor his secrecy agreement and watch his general conduct, he and Mariani boarded a bus with blacked-out windows and took a 20 to 30-minute ride down a bumpy gravel road. They arrived at a base near Papoose dry lake bed known as S4. S4 badge E6722MAJ1. Tom Mahood conducted an open-minded investigation of Lazar and posted a timeline beginning with his birth in Florida January 26, 1959 and continuing through his problems with pandering charges, bankruptcy, etc. Once it was a hot story, and now many think Lazar's story was either a fabrication or deliberate disinformation. Rarely are such pronouncements the last word. A critical issue was his claimed education at MIT as a physicist. While there were records found at Pierce Junior College in Woodland Hills, a search of all MIT records and publications found no trace of Lazar. Records of his attendance at Cal Tech and Cal State Northridge were also not found. Did he lie? That is the common conclusion. But the story
I want to
of
point
his
out there's
working
a
on the
newspaper
sports
article
model would not
that he
die,
then
and other test
refuted
site
that
workers
claim
affirm
that
that
he didn't
Bob
work
worked
there.
at the
He
Nevada
did.
test site. Other sources have said that the S4 facility is just as Bob describes it to be, and that reverse engineering is conducted there in secret. I have even met a computer engineer who works on contract for the Navy at Area 51 who has reverse engineered an alien device. He is quite credible and is still on contract from time to time. Oh yes, he has a genuine Area 51 badge, not the fun badges sold at UFO conferences. Now the friends of another scientist who worked at S4 have stepped forward, and I have taken this new case bearing in mind all those nasty critics out there. Why? Because it may be the key to the alien presence and mission on Earth. This is the saga of a man held in captivity by his employers and who is now retired, as of March 2005, and his name is Dr. Dan Burisch. Dr. Dan C. Burisch, Dr. Dan Crane, Captain USN. S4 badge H6196 Major. I am telling this man's story because I am researching various specific references I have in my possession. Suffice to say, he was trained as a microbiologist and worked on a project involving a live ebb, and because Dan is one of the sincerest men I have met who has an encyclopedic mind, a good sense of humor and wit, and little motive to fabricate information. C. HTTP URL. For the story of the so-called guests of the U.S. government, the story of the Yellow Book, and the involvement of the Los Alamos National Labs. Also, you may order the book, exempt from disclosure, at this website. It also has Burisch material. Jared was not allowed to leave by the Majestic Group and thus considers himself captive. The commentary that follows is from my source. I was going through my files to find out about Dan's badge, but I don't have any copies. I remember him telling me that he never got to take his badge home at all. For what it's worth, I can tell you what it looked like, based on his descriptions. It was a white badge with 2 blue hash marks across the upper left side. Below these hash marks was his designated area, S4. Directly above the S4 was a star-shaped punch. On his old badge, there were 3 letters underneath S4. They were ETL for Extraterrestrial Laboratory. In his later badges they changed the ETL to EBL for Extraterrestrial Biological Laboratory. On the right-hand side of the badge was MAJ spelled vertically. The badges also displayed the photo of the scientist, and below this photo was his name, assignment and badge number, the H number. Along the very bottom was either a DX, standing for Departmental Transfer, or WX, standing for Engineering Transfer, code which would allow the person access to different parts of the project. Or pavilions as they call them. The reverse of this badge had a black mag strip. When Dan got his badge, it was usually paired up with an orange badge that gave his hash for logging into that facility, papoose, for the day. Dan would receive a separate badge if he needed to go to floor 2, which if I correctly remember him saying were LG and Sidekick. But badging got a little more complicated as you got lower down into the labs. You see, nobody was supposed to know who you were as you got lower down into the Aquarius project area. When Dan got to the Aquarius level, he was required to place his badge into a plastic bag-like container before he went into decontamination. When he came out of there, the badge was returned to him, but it was laminated in a plastic pouch. I guess it had to be decontaminated too. Once that was collected by Dan, he carried it over to a badge wall and put it on a hook. Usually he was told to turn it over so the front was facing the wall and nobody could read it, in an open numbered spot. Any spot would do so long as nobody else's badge was hanging there. Then Dan would take a blue numbered badge that corresponded to the spot and put his original badge on. This blue badge only had a number on it. He was then scientist #5 inches, for example, for the remainder of his time down there. Bottle washers and support personnel were similarly numbered. So bottle washer number 3 might be called over by scientist number 9, etc. This served to completely isolate the different levels of workers from one another, and help maintain compartmentalization. Nobody was supposed to use proper names at that level. Dan Burisch, Crane, is a microbiologist receiving his PhD in 1989 in New York. NYU is already starting to deny a record of this, but documents exist showing his educational record. He first graduated with a BA from UNLV in 1986 when he was first approached as a candidate for working on a project for the government. From the time period 1982 to 85, he is listed as a biologist and owner of Crane Environment Research in Las Vegas. He submitted a proposal to NASA entitled, On the Transplantation of Protozoa and the Exploitation of Martian Exobiology. The Case for Euglena viridis in the Automated Biological Laboratory. Dan has an intense interest in Mars, its anomalies, and potentials for life. NASA replied, Your project has been found to contain sufficient intrinsic merit as to enable integration into NSCORT Bioregenerative Life Support Division, a sub-directorate of the Controlled Ecological Life Support Systems, CELSS, program of the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. This graphic and more docs can be found at http URL. He was eventually assigned to be the working group leader in Project Aquarius, R4800, Papoose Site 4 on the Nevada test site at the same location as Robert Lazar, only briefly when Lazar was there. But assigned to a leadership position sometime around 1994. He worked in the underground biological lab that had been installed on Level 4. The security procedures for entering the area included optical retinal scan and voiceprint identification. Showering, shaving, decontamination, and change of clothing was required before entering the lab, as they had classified at a biosafety level of 5, which is not listed in the OSU manuals. Here is a description of biosafety level 4. Biosafety level 4. Practices, safety equipment, and facilities are applicable to work with dangerous and exotic agents which pose a high individual risk of life-threatening disease. All manipulations of potentially infectious diagnostic materials, isolates, and naturally or experimentally infected animals pose a high risk of exposure and infection to laboratory personnel. Lassa fever virus is representative of the microorganisms assigned to level 4. I guess coming into contact with extraterrestrial life forms is an additional level of hazard. Unknown microbes could be transferred from the host to the workers. Project Aquarius was only one of 5 compartmentalized projects conducted at the S4 facility. More detail will be supplied as we progress with the story of S4, but here is a brief listing. Project Sigma, TS, Orcon. Project Sigma, PROWORD, Aquarius. Originally established as part of Project XXX in 1954. Became a separate project in 1976. Its mission was to establish communication with aliens. This project met with positive success, when in 1959, the United States established primitive communications with the aliens. On April 25, 1964, a USAF intelligence officer met 2 aliens at a pre-arranged location in the desert in New Mexico. The contact lasted for approximately 3 hours. XXX, for over half a line. XXX, the Air Force officer, managed to exchange basic information with the 2 aliens, AH-7. This project is continuing at an Air Force base in New Mexico. OPR, XXX, from the Aquarius document. Project Sigma at S4 was associated with satellites and satellite surveillance. Project Galileo dealt with the propulsion system and was the main area of study for Lazar. He was taken to the briefing room and told to study reports about propulsion and the role of gravity as the propulsion medium. Harnessing, amplifying and lensing the basic gravity a wave has many other possibilities. Project Sidekick dealt with a beam weapon potential of the craft and the attempt to prototype one. Somehow using gravity and lensing it in order to collimate the beam. Once the beam is focused in a triangulated manner on a specific point, the options of destructions are endless. Project Looking Glass dealt with the physics of seeing the effects of an artificially produced gravity wave on time. This, as with the other projects, all embraced gravity and the control of it, and therefore the control of space-time as the key element. The commentary that follows is from my source that linked with inside sources and took notes on Project Looking Glass and time travel experiments. With regard to LG, as I understand it, this device, at least 3 to 4 years ago, could not focus on a detailed sequence of activities in the future. In other words, you could not see exactly what would happen, like a series of events. I was told to consider the multiverse, 5, idea combined with work by Richard Gott on cosmic strings, 6. The multiverse apparently is accessed when the forward mode is set. I was also told to consider the views provided by LG as one of many potential realities, at least in the future view mode. I have also been told that recently there has been an effort made to outfit videotape recorders to be sent forward through the apparatus, thereby allowing the Dark Project people to gain some insight into what may take place. When I heard about this, several questions came to my mind. The most pressing of which was, if a camera were sent forward in time, space, would it be able to record anything other than what was immediately in front of its lens? I mean, what if LG were located in the middle of the Groom Lake facility, and the operators wanted to gain insight into the outcome of a conflict, say in the Middle East? How could a videotape recorder, set to record what was right in front of its lens at that location, gather any data on the Middle East if it were still stuck in the middle of the Mojave Desert when it got to the future? Hell, something important could be happening right behind the camera and it would miss it. A couple of degrees change in camera direction allows one set of events to be seen while another set is completely overlooked, much less events half a world away. To answer this question, my contact was not specific, saying only that cameras did not move, as mass does not change in its perspective to spacetime. However, such an item placed into the injected atmosphere might experience a different time, if only briefly. And cameras could film within the gas or see images in the injected atmosphere as though it were a lens reflecting events in and around the column. I was given to understand that the tilt or positioning of the electromagnets would allow different views or positions in the environment to be reflected in the gas column. I feel confident that at least 2 rings of electromagnets are employed and that the rest of the device is composed of a barrel and the gas injected into the barrel. 2 different sources have indicated that these are the basic components. These magnets spin in different directions, creating a charge of some kind. Then the gas is injected into the barrel. Depending on the direction of the spin, I am sure speed and tilt and a bunch of other factors must also have an effect. Time-space can be warped forward or backwards by long or short distances. Relative to the present, I have reason to believe that the scientists have completed a map of the exact positions and speeds of the magnets necessary to reach targeted times both forward and back. Apparently, images of the events at different places, relative to the location of the device, can be picked up and in essence reflected off the gas, causing it to behave like a teleprompter or crystal ball. For lack of a better example, but I am not entirely sure that mass does not move, or that mass is not affected. Since I was also told many years ago about an experiment that went very wrong in the early years of the LG project, involving a test subject of some kind. As I understand it, there was significant movement of mass during that experiment, and it ended up with a rather gruesome death for the poor test subject. I originally thought it was a monkey, but I found out that there were many test subjects that got sent through, so I am not certain what kind was involved in the experiment that went bad. However, in my typical reverse logic search for corollaries, this tells me that there must have been many test subjects that made it through just fine. So I am certain that any errors that were made or any miscalculations have long since been corrected. I wish I could offer you more information. For what it's worth, my sources have confirmed the presence of electromagnets and a barrel-like device which is injected with some kind of gas. These components seem necessary for LG to function as a viewing device. And as for any changes in mass or movement within time-space, I really don't know, since my information sources would only tell me so much about what they saw or experienced at the time they were involved. But it can be reasoned, based upon what they did say, that there were significant experiments in the movement of mass back and forward through time, many of which were successful. I am sure much has been discovered and or refined in the process since then. Project Aquarius, an umbrella project with a focus on the study of the EBEs. All these projects were known by Dan, but further expansion on their descriptions and relationships will be investigated further. There is also something explained in the briefing documents as a convergent timeline, and the document seems to explain a relationship that could explain why they are here, what they are doing, and why sampling of the population and life forms on this planet are being conducted. I have and am submitting documents and background on this man to experts who can help, but giving him the benefit of the doubt. And after hearing similar tales from others who work in the black world, if nothing else, we want this man alive and free in the future, along with other scientists and technicians who are working for the greater good. Whether you believe these stories or not, there is a reason to take them seriously, as there is already sufficient evidence of a cover-up. Maybe Majestic and the committee are acting in the greater interest of humanity, but an uninformed public cannot make a determination. Without solid proof, these stories remain entertaining, but nothing that should detract from our interests in sports or fashion. According to Dan, the officer he reported to was then Vice Admiral J.M. McConnell, who was recently the director of NSA. He is now retired into civilian life. Mr. McConnell joined Booz Allen in March 1996 after serving as Director, National Security Agency, NSA, the agency responsible for signals intelligence and for all classified information security for the U.S. government. In addition to serving as director of NSA, a position he held from 1992 to 1996, Mr. McConnell served as the intelligence officer for the chairman. Joint Chiefs of Staff, JCSJ-2, during the dissolution of the Soviet Union and Operation Desert Storm. While serving on the Joint Staff, Mr. McConnell regularly briefed the President and his cabinet officers, international leaders, and the Senate and House of the U.S. Congress. He also appeared regularly on international television as the U.S. intelligence spokesman during the Gulf War. He achieved the rank of Vice Admiral in the U.S. Navy, where he spent more than 25 years as an operational intelligence officer. This is not something that is proven but is included here as an item for further research. Below is a recreation of the draft of the first page of the Aquarius document written by Dan, which mentions
Sorry
McConnell.
about the image not loading, folks.
Letters
This is from
from
the Wayback
USAF
Machine.
Major Rhett Tom Mack to Robert Collins regarding Jared and Dr. Danny Crane. Please see below email, letter written to me by a Thomas Mack on February 18, 1999. Tom Mack was only 51 years old when he died of a stroke last month or in September 2000. Up to February of 1999 I'd never heard of a Thomas Mack, and unfortunately, did I ever get the chance to meet him. But, all my other contacts who did know him said he was a great guy. Also, Tom never knew that I already knew some of the people he referred me to. So, with permission from my sources, I'm releasing this letter, email to the public. May Tom Mack rest in peace. RMC. *** Subject. Groom Lake. Date. Thursday the 18th of February 1999 16 hours 38 minutes and 54 seconds 0800 PST. From, Thomas Mack, bbsnowman50@yahoo.com. To, lemmys@sprintmail.com. Mr. Collins. I understand you are interested in the Air Force's investigation of UFOs. I have read your website and was very impressed with the postings. I am a retired AF major. I served from 1972 to 1994. My entire AF career was spent in AF intelligence. I served with the Air Force Scientific Advisory Group, Groom Lake, NV, from June 75 to April 83 and from Mar 88 to October 94. My retirement date from the AF. I worked on numerous special projects. All involved the reverse engineering of captured UFOs. Yes, I was intimately involved in this operation. I worked with Jared. We called him the Puppet Master. The most perfect non-human being in the universe. He actually had a good sense of humor. He could imitate anyone's voice. A very clever creature. Comment. See bottom of EBEs 1, 2, 3 and Jared. I worked on various other projects that involved the collection of UFO-related intelligence. I worked with a special agent, Richard Doty. Agent Doty was our counterintelligence agent. He would conduct operations to prevent the disclosure of our project. A very nifty guy, very knowledgeable of the subject of UFOs. He was briefed into the program sometime in 1980. The entire program was classified above top secret. A classification of cosmic magic. The program was called MAJASTIC-12. We operated under the control of this group. I wish I could go public, I could embarrass the government. I can prove to the world that the UFO subject is real. I just wanted you to know you are on the right track. Keep it up. Find Agent Doty and he should assist you in finding the truth. The last location of Agent Doty was in Albuquerque, New Mexico. He was working for the Highway Patrol or maybe the State Patrol, whatever they call it in New Mexico. Good hunting. BB Snow. Subject. Forwarded message, fish face. Date. Saturday the 20th of February 1999 18 hours 12 minutes and 39 seconds 0800 PST. From, Thomas Mack, bbsnowman50@yahoo.com. To, Toppin166@aol.com. Rick. STAR was a special response team formed in the middle 50s. It consisted of experts in several different fields. Their main objective was to counter any alien threat or attack. I heard about it and read some information on their activities, however, I was not involved with the team. I don't recall whether the team was still in existence in the 70s. I only knew Jared by that name or by Puppet Master. Never heard of him being referred to as Smiling Eyes. That could have been Ebb 1, who lived from 1947 to 1952. Of course, that was before my time. As for Q94 to 109A or the other documents you mentioned, I left in 1994, and was not privy to all the information that was being published. The format seems to be correct, however, I don't recall the particular documents. Cosmic magic was a caveat for our program. Majestic 12 was the category of classification. As for the cellular subfraction analysis, ambient biochemistry and subfraction biochemistry, I didn't have a need to know that type of information. Although I had the special clearance for scientific intelligence, I probably didn't think it was worth reading. I knew Captain Danny Crane. However, I think he was in DIA. Project Aquarius, R4800, was the specific program we operated under. Papoose. Site 4 was the location. Hope this helps. Tom Mack on right and Paul McGovern on left. Groom Lake, Nevada circa 1970s. There is now a fire station sitting where they are walking. Picture sent by Tom Mack's son. Project Starflower. Dan has been working on a project once dubbed Lotus, now coded as Starflower 1. This project deals with the original seeding of the Earth that started all forms of life. Panspermia holds that life on Earth was seeded from space, and that life's evolution to higher forms depends on genetic programs that come from space. It is a wholly scientific, testable theory for which evidence is accumulating. 3. I met Dan one day for coffee and asked him if he believed in the panspermia hypothesis, that Earth was seeded by viruses, viroids, or bacteria from space. He said he did, but had a better explanation for the seeding of Earth, an insight gained from his Lotus project. This was a surprise, but as he talked about it, the possibilities became most interesting in multiple ways. The following note is taken from the Lotus protocols and is a little heavy on scientific terms, but should convey a great dealing of meaning to an educated reader. There will be a glossary at the end of this work that will clarify some of the special terms that Dan uses frequently. As a matter of required reference, the origins of life in the form of bacterial cells, currently dates to a little prior to 3.9 billion years ago, BYA. Quite an event for the early Archean eon, with promitochondrial endosymbionts seemingly entrenching to become mitochondria proper, by 2 BYA, terrestrial cyanobacteria appearing near 1.4 BYA. And a significant taxa diversification of photosynthetic protoctists close to 1.3 BYA, correlated to the acquisition of symbiotic photosynthetic plastids. Annotation from reference, and used to follow. See Margulis, Lynn, Symbiotic Planet, 2000, and Five Kingdoms, 1988. Is it not interesting that the issue of the possible polyphyletic origins of those plastids remains open, yet dogma is pronouncing near Cretan T for the predecessor of mitochondria, or is it? Really? Let's take a close look at the contentions of Dr. Margulis. In the search for mitochondrial origins, the varieties to look toward for guidance, according to Margulis, symbiotic would be either B. Vibrio, a small 0.3 micrometer pseudomonad that is aggressive to larger bacteria and even burrows into them, which respires its food sources and releases carbon dioxide, or Paracoccus, an oxygen-respiring micrococcus of diameter 1 micrometer, individual sphere. The problem, here, is this. As late as 1981, citations of Margulis' work carried statements that a likely category of mitochondrial precursor was an anaerobic phototrophic bacterium, purple non-sulfur bacteria, that synthesize organic compounds by direct incorporation of carbon dioxide. A big difference? You bet your life. A crack in her theory? It is certainly a problem. The crack is not found in the relevance of the new biochemical findings alone. In the time from 1981, really somewhere before, and it was then cited in texts such as by Wallace, King, and Sanders in Biology, The Science of Life before 4th edition, until now. Research has been progressing on the contents of mitochondria, and a striking resemblance has been found between those contents and those of B. delivibrio. So, it appears that Margulis has moved her chip of support from the basic biochemistry of the purple nonsulfures to the pseudomonads. This is the mistake. Not that the purple nonsulfures were the end-all in the debate. You will soon see, quite the contrary. Under the current line of thinking, as the mutualistic symbiosis progressed between endosymbiont and host, redundancy was screened out of the endosymbiont. The endosymbiont no longer used a large portion of its biochemistry, and conversely its genomic components, as independent existence allegedly became a thing of the past. Does this mean, necessarily, that the remaining leftover biochemistry correlations, no matter how integral to the functioning of both the mitochondrion and that of the counterpart under question, must posit a singular direct taxonomic linkage between the two? Nope, not under serial endosymbiotic theory. Can this be akin to cell apoptosis for the theory? No, not just yet. Is the correlation between the two, that is diminution of redundancy, correct? Probably so. The complementary behavior between mitochondrion and nucleus would infer as much. Is the origin of the relationship, a macroevolution from a pair of independent organisms necessitated for us to now see the refinement from redundancy? No. What say you of evolution? Are the first acts of progressing organismic metabolism, a shared dance of catabolism and anabolism, one imbued with a negotiated hyperbolic peace between predator and prey? See Margulis, Lynn. Microcosmos, 1997. Or does life follow the apparent path of the universe, a series of transparently stoic acts of cosmos from chaos? Pick up a text of a creation myth. In defense of one or the other, I would reference to http URL. For hierarchy through productivity, Drossel, Barbara, University of Manchester in England. Conservation of Gene Clusters, Anderson, Civ GE and Erickson. Kimmo, Dynamches of Gene Order Structures and Genome Architectures, Department of Molecular Evolution, Evolutionary Biology Center, Uppsala University, Sweden. As published on the Internet in http URL. Orders 0410.htm. And a refutation to the Dawkins selfish gene theory, as published by Unishi, Daily University Science News, Efros, David R., New England Complex Systems Institute. With an opinion defense by Dr. Bar Yam, Yaner, April 25, 2000. I remain prepared, and would encourage, to debate the issuance of my opinions, relative the relevance between the aforementioned orders of magnitude. A little further on, he has further reflections on the endosymbiotic theory proposed by Margulis. I believe that the scientists, including Margulis, but no mistake I have great admiration for her work, are too busy focusing on the newer biochemistry. Then jumping from one foot to another in the search for the closest present biochemical counterpart. All the while praying that Gregor Mendel will justify their beliefs with results of polymerase chain reaction. I have been guilty of the same. Photomicrographs taken by Dan of Ganesh particle. Neo-Darwinism is an attempt to reconcile Mendelian genetics, which says that organisms do not change with time, with Darwinism, which claims they do. Lynn Margulis. Artificial selection never produces wholly new characteristics. There is no evidence that natural selection without the input of new genes does either. The notion that mutation and recombination can compose new genes is implausible. There is scant evidence that mutation and recombination can compose functional new genes that differ from any known predecessor by more than, say, a dozen essential nucleotides. The evolution of antifreeze glycoproteins in Antarctic cod presents problems for both programs. Evolution does not appear to be gradual, contrary to Darwin's firm prediction. The standard theory cannot explain why the coordinating genes that control the development of embryos and major features are often very similar across totally different species. Convergent evolution is a surprise not well explained by neo-Darwinism. Macroevolutionary progress is not accounted for by neo-Darwinian microevolution. 3. In accordance with new ideas on evolutionary biology beyond the neo-Darwinistic approach, Dan finds that 1. Life comes from space. And 2, that the Genesis seed has evidence of intelligent design and operation, not alien intelligence, but a cosmic creator intelligence. Here is what he has to say about it. Since my beginning with an M_hash, I have had the distinct honor of having been assigned to some of the most interesting projects known to humankind. From the work of Project Aquarius to the sands of the Iraq Desert, I have attempted to COM1 block text set. Serve my country with the greatest effort and efficiency. I deeply hope that my latest assignment, in Africa, has served the interests of the United States of America. For the past decade, I have been slowly formulating a thesis, bringing together the research of the greatest minds of humanity to attempt an answer to the ages-old question of our origins. That formulation culminated in the L Project, later named Project SFL. In a nutshell, we have found the key elements to put together an ancient virus that not only once seeded our beautiful planet, but whose integral parts still play an act of continuous creation within the intricate web of life. That play, we believe, pushes forward the complexity found within the biosphere, to perfectly match species diversity to the other elements of our living world. This sounds wonderful, however, just as there exists subtle behavioral cues within child's play, so do we believe that such also resides hidden within the conjoined L. Being armed with the most ancient DNA codes, having the power to manipulate the dance of the L, does not give us sufficient knowledge, the authority of its maker, or the right itself to conjoin, synthesize, or otherwise taunt it or its awesome powers. Our span of control exists within the narrow range of careful study. To do more, we risk humanity. Much of what Dan describes is very technical and deals with protocols and procedures. I am currently contacting friendly scientists to help decipher some of this. There is more to all of this which has been added from other confidential sources. It is always easy to dismiss these extraordinary claims, but I believe in going beyond skepticism and investigating every nuance. There is much going on here that will finally make sense to those with keen intuition. We discussed DNA, but it is not just the structure of the molecules in DNA, but the resonances and vibrations that relate to extraordinary mathematical harmonies. If DNA is seeded on planets, as Dan believes through a virus that split into two components, then cosmic seeding of planets is the norm, and those planets which have developed the right conditions, geological intelligent design or the Gaia hypothesis, where atmosphere, lithosphere, and magnetic field parameters are all fine-tuned for the development and flourishing of life by life itself. Gaia hypothesis. The physical and chemical condition of the surface of the Earth, of the atmosphere, and of the oceans has been and is actively made fit and comfortable by the presence of life itself. This is in contrast to the conventional wisdom which held that life adapted to the planetary conditions as it and they evolved their separate ways. Elsewhere, in relation to the definition of Gaia, we find the following. The entire range of living matter on Earth, from whales to viruses and from oaks to algae, could be regarded as constituting a single living entity capable of maintaining the Earth's atmosphere to suit its overall needs and endowed with faculties and powers far beyond those of its constituent parts. Gaia can be defined as a complex entity involving the Earth's biosphere, atmosphere, oceans, and soil, the totality constituting a feedback of cybernetic systems which seeks an optimal physical and chemical environment for life on this planet. And in another section we find speculative thoughts concerning Gaia, and ones which probably appealed to many of the readers who supported the various environmental groups, but at the same time provoked the hard-line scientific critics of the Gaia hypothesis. To what extent is our collective intelligence also a part of Gaia? Do we as a species constitute a Gaian nervous system?
Okay, I'm going to just
consciously anticipate environmental changes?
That's it. It's pretty much over.
147. The Gaia hypothesis has often been described by commentators as one of the most provoking singular ideas to have been put forward in the second half of this century. And while it struggled to be formally accepted in the fields of the traditional sciences in the 1970s and early 1980s, it certainly managed to provoke its share of debate. During this period, Lovelock prepared for a second publication. Another theory discussed by Dan is that of endosymbiosis. This theory is propounded by Lynn Margulis and goes hand in hand with the Gaia hypothesis. Effectively, Lynn Margulis contended that symbiosis, not chance mutation, was the driving force behind evolution, and that the cooperation between organisms and the environment are the chief agents of natural selection, not competition among individuals. She says that Darwin's grand vision was not wrong, only incomplete. This was a little much to handle for some of her critics, and at first her theory was not accepted, especially in its original appearance alongside that of the Gaia hypothesis. There were two fundamental components of Lovelock and Margulis's Gaia theory. The planet is, in Margulis's words, a superorganismic system. Evolution is the result of cooperative, not competitive processes. At that time in 1969, her paper was rejected by over a dozen scientific journals because no one knew how to evaluate it. Finally, after a long and hard struggle against peer-reviewed resistance, she prevailed. The extent of vision and perseverance with her emerging theory is often measured by the reviews of critics. It is therefore quite rewarding to find that one of the leading critics of the Gaia hypothesis, Richard Dawkins, in reference to the separately contrived theory by Margulis, states the following: "I greatly admire Lynn Margulis' sheer courage and stamina in sticking by the endosymbiosis theory, and carrying it through from being an unorthodoxy to an orthodoxy. This is one of the great achievements of 20th century evolutionary biology, and I greatly admire her for it. At the present time in contemporary scientific circles, what was once regarded as an absurd speculation is now taken as self-evident truth." Most recent biology textbooks include reference to Lynn Margulis' theory of endosymbiosis. The majority of them put it forward as the most likely explanation of the origin and evolution of life on the planet we know as Earth. 4. This saga continues. Read the new book coming soon. AFFADAVITS. Falsehood is easy.
Camera back on. Yeah, that was a little bit extensive. Sorry, folks, I didn't expect it to be that long. But what they were talking about was Project Aquarius, according to Dan Burisch, and how it tied into the work he was doing. I guess, I don't know. Anyways, that was interesting, but kind of boring. Anyways, let's share something more powerful. What we're going to be covering on Friday on Tips, Techniques, Survival Traits, episode 23. This just broke day before yesterday. A nonprofit research organization literally just did a whole report on the Biden laptop, everything. They've been doing it since August. No, actually, since last year, I believe. A little over 13 months is what he said in the video. But let me share this because I think this will be big news, and most people aren't aware of it yet. And I wanted to give our viewers a preview for Friday's show. So,
I'm Garrett Ziegler, and I'm a former Trump White House staffer, and that is merely 1% of the degeneracy, debauchery, and criminality that is on Hunter Biden's laptop that was drunkenly dropped off at a Delaware laptop repair shop in April of 2019 and was never retrieved. Per Delaware law, the contents of that laptop became the shop owner's after 90 days. My small research group, Marco Polo, has a copy of the laptop, and we want to write a comprehensive report that's analogous to the Mueller report on real foreign collusion. The Mueller report was a 2-year escapade that cost the American people over $15 million and found no collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russians. In this laptop here, we not only have foreign collusion, but we have money laundering, sex crimes between Hunter Biden and multiple women, including his underage niece. And what we want to do is something that every single mainstream outlet is not going to do. And they're not going to do it, and they've had the chance now for almost a year, because a lot of them have had it since October. What we want to do is for the historical record, so in 500 years, when people read about America, they know that Joe Biden, who was the Manchurian candidate and who became the installed Manchurian president, exactly how he is compromised. And his son Hunter is one of the most corrupt, disgusting members of any American first family in the history of the country. We feel an obligation to do what every single law enforcement institution in this country, especially and including the Federal Bureau of Investigation, is not going to do. They've had the laptop since December of 2019, and they picked up that laptop not because of concerns about child exploitation, which is apparent if you look through the thing, but for money laundering, which is a crime in which Hunter did a lot of. But it's much deeper than that. We want to once and for all lay out exactly how the Biden family is compromised and how that relates to the election fraud that we just went through, in which I think there's no more important topic to delve into. Our group, which is 5 people including myself, has vast experience writing reports. I'm the youngest guy on the team, but I would submit that I have credentials in writing reports from election fraud to domestic manufacturing to the pandemic response to counterfeit goods and trafficking in counterfeit goods and trade. All of those things and more are going to be in the Hunter Biden laptop report. We want to spread a wide net and get small dollar gifts to do this thing. And what this will allow us to do is have editorial independence and to ensure that no one has control over the content, structure, and final result of the report. Lastly, we felt that it was necessary to contrast our mission and our project with the sham Mueller investigation. Our report is going to cost 1% of what that fiasco ended up being. And not only do we have the benefit of Senator Johnson's report that was done last October, which was about Hunter and Burisma, we have the laptop as well. So we're going to be able to take what Johnson did and what Tony Bublinsky talked about last fall on Hunter and Jim and Joe Biden's Chinese business deals. We're going to tie it all together. And we hope to have this done by Thanksgiving. And we think it is a duty of ours because we have this laptop and we don't want it to be buried. And we are going to be releasing large portions of it so that people can go through it themselves. We don't want to guard this thing. I think every American has the right to know what's on this laptop. What we want to do is synthesize all these materials, the money laundering, the drugs, the collusion, the sex trafficking, all of these entities that Hunter is involved with are shady and corrupt. And a few of them are CCP controlled themselves. The Bank of China is literally funding Hunter Biden. And remember, it's not just Hunter. In these text messages, Hunter tells his own family half of his salary has gone to his dad for his entire life. So this is our country. We're either going to be a republic or we're not. And I think that there's no better thing for me to do right now than to commit myself and my team to studying public corruption. Because what happened on November 3rd, 2020 was a sham, it's embarrassing, and it woke up a lot of people who were asleep at the switch, and they are now realizing how systemic the Chinese Communist Party and other entities are in our government. And so I would urge you all to consider giving a very small amount to this effort. And I pledge complete and utter transparency. There are a lot of groups on the right raising money for endeavors, and they don't even provide a budget. So on the flyer on our website, which you can find at marcopolo.guru/support, we're telling you our budget, and we're telling you what it's going to cost to hire forensics teams, to basically map out hunters' movements. There's an amazing Australian think tank that has mapped out every single Chinese entity in their influence across the world in their Belt and Road Initiative. We're going to be doing the same thing with Hunter. With the EXIF data that's on these photos, we're going to be going through and mapping out who he was meeting with and when. And we're going to be releasing through torrents and other tools large portions of the laptop that have never been released. And we're asking for your support, and we want to be as transparent as possible. So thank you for listening. God bless you. And I think that there's no more important thing than the election fraud and the Biden crime syndicate. God bless you.
Well, that should be a good show. We're definitely going to be covering that Friday on our Tips, Techniques, and Survival Traits episode 23. So let's wrap it up for this show, and then we'll see you guys.